Yeah. Awesome. Oh, will I see them up on the screen if they've joined? Okay, you go try. Okay, so I'll let you do your thing. All right, well, I'll kind of sort of get started. Morning. Hey, Derek, you and I just met. What's your name? Hi. Oh, that's a pretty name. How do you spell that? Sindel. Is that a blend of two names? Oh, that's simple. My dad wanted to call me Cordelia, and my mom was like, "That's a hard no." I'm like, "But Corey would have been cute." So anyway, I'm not Cordelia. I'm Allison. All right, I've not taught this particular segment of Ignite before, so I'm a little bit gonna wing it with you guys. But I really don't want to be doing all the talking and talking at you. I'd rather just have conversation and ask questions and things like that. How long have you guys each been in the business? Oh my gosh, baby, brandy new. Okay, still brandy new. Yeah. How are you finding it so far? Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. And you're both drinking from a fire hose still. Okay. That's a lot. Yeah. Well, just keep taking it in little by little. Don't feel like you have to know it all every day. Okay. All right. I think these are things I'm supposed to overview. Here are the things we're going to cover today. The competencies of the business, recognizing your role as a fiduciary, which I think is really important. We'll talk more about that. Review the success system, recap, and any ahas. And there's going to be like, this is all structured to cover ahas at the end of every segment. I'm sure you guys have heard by now, if you've listened in on Quick Start or anything like that, everything is it's about lead gen in this business. Have you guys started lead gen? How do you feel about that? Mhm. Good. Yeah. And that's okay to not know and say that. I find that people ask a question, you don't know the answer. Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Let me get back to you. What's wrong with that, right? You wouldn't expect anybody else to make something up, or when people are making something up and that doesn't feel good. So to be able to be comfortable, I don't know, it's a great question. But I think too, having just a couple things at top of mind about the market is always good. You can always fall back on that. So you have something to contribute to the conversation. And Gary's vision speech, there's some great information in there. So just kind of sticking some of that in your back pocket is always great. So it's one thing to do the lead generation. It's another to be able to continue that conversation and keep moving it forward and ultimately converting that person to an appointment and then a client. You'll hear people talk about a conversion rate. That's what they're referring to, is being able to take somebody from the baby conversation of, oh, you're in real estate, let's talk about that, all the way through to trying to get their house listed or work with them as a buyer to get them under contract on a property. It's a numbers game. The more people you talk to, the better off you're going to be, and the more experience you get, the better your conversion rate will get. I'd love to see where you talk to 10 people, you're getting 7, 8 new clients out of it. That'd be great. It makes all the lead gen a little bit easier. Because right now you're probably having to talk to a lot of people to try to get one person to move forward. And that just comes with experience. Being comfortable in talking with buyers and sellers about the relationship, what that looks like, what the agreement looks like, the listing agreement, the buyer agency agreement. Being able to show buyers properties and market seller properties, right, negotiate contracts. I know people get really caught up in having to learn the paperwork now. It's good to know the paperwork. You don't have to know all the paperwork. purchase and sales agreement is really good to understand, but it feels better when you're actually doing it, like a practice run. So I would say, find some time in your schedules over the next couple of weeks and do a dummy test. Do a test case, it could be for your parents' house or your friend's house. But practicing with a real life property and a real life person is really the best way, because we can talk about forms all day long, but until you have a person or a property that you're specifically talking about, at least in my brain, it kind of goes in one ear out the other, because I can't actually apply it to something. Once you get under contract, coordinating the sale to closing and managing the money for the escrow. Yes, talk about all those things. Okay. I see you pop in. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Yeah, I love that. That sounds good. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And oh yeah, I'll give that to them. They can just pass it between the two of them. You bet. All right. I'll read you the quote just because it's here. To achieve your highest potential, these 6 core competencies must be done consistently and done well. And I think the key to that sentence in my mind that jumps out is the consistency leads to doing things well. I think that's true in all parts of your life, right? If you run a marathon and don't do any training or any running to get in shape for it, marathon is not going to go very well. But if you're running 3 days a week for 4 months, chances are because you developed the consistency, your marathon's going to go better than if you didn't do any of it. Okay. I think there's our first aha. Any ahas yet? I know we're just 5 minutes in. Just the practice one. I think I learn by actually doing. I can sit and talk theory all day long. That's lovely. But until we're having a conversation about a real thing and people start asking me questions, or I actually have to go, like if I'm filling out a purchase and sales agreement and I have to fill in the book and page from the deed. Oh, you suddenly realize now you need the deed. Where do I find that? So then it leads to all these layers that we need to learn how to dig through and sift through to find the information we need. And then you're actually forced to read the contract. And now that you have, and you guys, maybe you guys can even pair up together and do this for fun. Do your parents or family, and you have people that live nearby or in New Hampshire? Okay. How about you guys? Yeah, my siblings are within an hour. Right? Does everybody own a home, or somebody own a home? Okay. So use that property and do a market analysis on that same property. You have access to all this information. So pick a property and pretend you represent the buyer and they're going to buy that property and make up a price. It doesn't matter. And then you're also going to, or you can find a property at MLS and then also pretend you're going to list the property and do the same thing. Do a market analysis on your parents' property, your sister's property, brother's property, whatever it is. Then you actually have a real life test case that you're working on. And the other thing too is it makes you do all the things. It makes you figure out how to find a deed, how to find a tax map, how to get a tax card. And then you have to add that person into command as a client, create the opportunity, tie it into Loop or DocuSign to get to all the paperwork. So you're actually doing all of the things that right now you don't understand how they all go together, probably. Okay. Can you guys work on that? Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So do you guys understand fiduciary? what that means?
I want to say yes, but I don't want to be wrong about that.
Yeah, you hear it talked about in other industries as well. What? I don't understand the flow of these slides because I'm expecting this to pop up. Let's see.
So this is the workbook versus the presentation itself.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to go off this sheet because this is kind of what I wanted to talk about with the fiduciary and the functionary. Okay, so you hear fiduciary talked about in banking or financial management. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. You're working on behalf of your client and their interests and protecting their money. And I think that's a part of this business that sometimes people overlook, or clients or consumers don't really understand that we have that fiduciary responsibility. So when you're talking about the relationships in real estate and you're going over the brokerage disclosure form with people when you first meet them, I think it's super important to highlight that we're not just fly by night people who are like winging it because we love kitchens and bathrooms and renovating. That's like HGTV, and that's not real life. It doesn't happen in 30 minutes. So I think it's really important to highlight that and why it's important for them. And are you protecting their money like you'd protect your own? Are you good at protecting your own money? Are you good at you work hard for your money, but are you good at protecting your money? And if you're good at protecting your money, you're going to be good at protecting your client's money and their interests. And I think that over the years, when I have kind of found my own language and conversations around this, people understand that resonates with them and they appreciate that. They like that you're looking out for them. Doesn't everybody want somebody to look out for them? Because they have no idea what they're doing. Yes, you'll get those clients that are super experienced in real estate, but then you're also going to get those clients who've never done this before. You may get a first-time home buyer or someone who hasn't bought a home in 25 years and real estate's changed dramatically in that time. Or you may get someone who bought their home 20 years ago and they've never sold. You have to walk them through that process. Hey, Brad, are you joining us?
No,
Okay. Like a highway back here. So I guess in the column here, when they talk about fiduciaries being high level responsibility, I don't like that word functionary. It's pretty low level. It's basic. You're just, I think of that as administrative. Fiduciary, you have a high level relationship with somebody. Think of like, I guess, like your cashier at the grocery store versus a financial advisor. You have two very different relationships with your money with those people. My financial advisor, somebody I trust wholeheartedly. I don't know, Jeff, what would you do? My cashier, give me my change for my 10. Very different. Yes, they may double check what they're giving you for change, but they may not. You have to protect that more than they are. And the financial advisor is the one who has fiduciary responsibility to and should be holding himself or herself to a higher standard to protect your money the way they would protect their own. One accepts a high level of responsibility. One accepts a low level of responsibility. Again, my cashier and financial advisor come to mind, like that example that I just made up. That makes sense to me. You know, money is changing hands, but there's a different level of accountability in those two relationships. High skill, low skill, perceives information, records information. So I think our clients look to us for that perception and anticipation of everything that's happening. They look to us for that guidance. They look to us to help explain, anticipate, clear out the fog, make sense of things for them because they don't know what they don't know. And I think that's where the fiduciary is really, really important. They're really looking to you guys for that guidance. The interpret data. How do you guys feel about interpreting the market information right now? Do you feel like you can do it?
Sometimes I feel like I say things, I'm like, I really hope that's right. Like, it's not hard. Like, you tell conclusions. You tell someone that I don't want to be.
Give me an example. What do you mean? Like, has somebody said something to you that you didn't know what to say back?
still trying to understand, like, I'm like not really connected with stuff in public.
Mhm.
I've never really seen that before. So she would ask me a simple question about. I'm not sure, I'm not the one that's the next thing.
Was this your buyer or your mentor's buyer? Okay. Wait, the buyers were with an agent? I'm confused. Oh, I see. I see. Okay. She had the listing. Got it.
So I was like, I was just uncomfortable.
Mm,
But I always like read through like all this.
the disclosure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So those are things, if you're not familiar with a house, you're handy with a home or a handy person in general, you're gonna be learning all those things too.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think it's okay to say you don't know. I'd rather someone say I don't know than lie or make something up and then it's not accurate, because then you're potentially liable for misrepresenting something. And we don't want to ever be in a position where you can't get in trouble for saying I don't know, but you can get in trouble for making something up because you're uncomfortable saying I don't know. And we don't want you to get in trouble. Yeah, I mean, I think that reading the disclosure as best you can, if you can get to a property a few minutes early and kind of walk through it and kind of get the lay of the land. And also don't be afraid to text the listing agent if you're not sure. Did it not have it on the disclosure?
Yeah, I guess I just like. There was like, she asked if it was just like, no.
Mm. Okay. Mm.
I didn't look at it.
Yeah, there's all these little things to look for. Like a forced hot air system, you have ductwork, right? Like you've got vents in the floor, the ceiling, baseboard heat. So that's a forced hot air system. So just think of it as air, hot air, cold air being pushed through, which is forced hot air. And it could be powered or fueled by propane, gas, or oil. That's it. So you'll see sometimes people put FHA, forced hot air. Other times people will put FHW, forced hot water. Forced hot water is the baseboards you see, you probably have them in your homes. Kind of like these metal things against the wall. And running behind that is copper pipe filled with hot water. That's forced hot water. Again, also powered or fueled by oil or propane, sometimes natural gas. Does that help a little bit? Okay. And then with like those random little heaters, like those plugins, so many people have them nowadays. So this does come up a lot. And if it's gas, you would see a pipe coated in, I don't know what the material is, but it'll have like yellow, usually yellow, a line coming up out of the ground or the wall. And if it's gas, then you would see that. And it likely has to be vented outside as well. If it's just a plug in, it's just sitting there. It's electric. That's probably like faux flame. Yeah. This makes me think it would be really good to have a home inspector come in. Or if you can tag along on a home inspection. That's a really good idea too. I learned so much over the years tagging along on home inspections. Because every house is different, every house is quirky, every house has a personality, and you will learn so much. And then it makes you look really smart when you're out with your buyers and they're like, what's this? You're like, oh, I know exactly. Here, let me tell you all about that. Okay. So back to functionary and fiduciary. Yeah. So here's another good one. If you're functioning and you're just delivering the information versus advising and consulting, our clients look to us for the advice and the consultation. So approach everything that you do with that mindset. Always go the extra mile and behave always as a fiduciary in your mind and provide. No, you have to be careful of the client relationship versus just the customer relationship. But you always want to advise and consult and help them understand what is happening. And while you can't make the final decision for them, your goal is to provide them as much information and insight as possible so that when they make the decision. Hi, good, how are you? Good, good. See ya. So that when they go to make the decision, they feel like they have enough information to make a decision that feels good for them. And that's it. That's it. I know I say that's it makes it sound easy, but I always say to my clients when we're sitting down for that initial consultation, if it's the first time I've met with them or it's the first time we're doing a transaction together, is my goal is to help you make the best decision for you and your family possible. And you kind of run through the process, and we will come to a point multiple times in the transaction where we reach a fork in the road. And I'm going to help you, and we're going to analyze each path. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of each path. And then it's up to you to decide what feels right for you. Could be this path or it could be that path, but I want you to really understand what both paths may look like, that you can pick the one that feels best for you. You don't have to make the decision for them, but you have to enlighten them with as much information as possible so that they feel empowered to make the decision. Does that make sense? So with the fiduciary responsibility comes the maximum legal responsibility as well. You don't be scared by that. Let's embrace that. Partner versus employee, that's another thing. That's another thing I talk about with my clients as well, is we are a team in this process. And while I may have more, I have access to more data, I have access to more information, I have more experience, I've got more transactions under my belt. So I'm going into this eyes wide open. I understand for you, this feels overwhelming. This feels big. Let's not eat the whole sandwich at once. Let's take a little bite. Okay. And I want you to, I approach my relationship with my clients in the process if we are in this together. I'm not dragging you along, and you're not dragging me along. We are big on communication. We are big on expectations. We are big on deadlines. We are big on making sure we're on the same page at all the time. And if we're not, we need to be able to recognize we've had a disconnect and we need to stop and get back on the same page. So communication is key. And sometimes I think that's the part where people feel overwhelmed about the communication is they can feel like, oh, I don't want to say that. I don't know how to say that. But sometimes you just have to name it and just put it out there. And then I guarantee you, they're probably going to say, yeah, I was wondering about that. Or, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So again, I know this feels overwhelming because you guys are just kind of getting into this, but don't be afraid to sometimes name something and have what feels like a tricky conversation. They're probably already thinking the same thing and wondering, is that right? That doesn't make sense. Why are we doing it this way? You just have to be able to always tell them what you're going to tell them, and then remind them what you told them, and then probably do that multiple times throughout the process. And I would even consider, when I do my buyer seller consults, I have a roadmap of the process, you know, what happens. So, and I go through it with them in the meeting, but leave it with them so that if they ever feel confused, they have something to reference back, and also let them know that you're always there for all the questions. Okay. Educate and guide versus tell and sell. I like that, but tell and sell. Clients need, even though we have so much access to information from Zillow and Realtor.com, and we can see consumers can see a lot of things that they couldn't see 15, 20 years ago, I still think they need help interpreting the data. Case in point, I have a client right now. He's a lower price point in this market. So he's probably like 350. And it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. He's on the struggle bus, can't find anything. And he keeps saying, do you think they're overpriced? Do you think they're overpriced? I'm like, probably. And this is our new normal. And they are going to get multiple offers. So, because what he's going for is, do you think I can offer less? I'm not sure what market he's been watching. And no matter how much I tell him, because what I'll do is I'll go back, the ones we have looked at, I go back and I tell him when they close, what they closed for. And you're looking at 5, 10, 15% over list price. So I don't know. You tell me. Do you think they're overpriced based on everything we've seen over the past 8 months? So he keeps hoping and wishing and praying that something's going to change, but it just doesn't change. So I have to keep re-educating him. He's stubborn. He doesn't want to hear it. So because he doesn't want to hear it, he doesn't want to absorb it. So I have to keep reminding him and keep re-educating him again and again and again. And even if you have a savvy buyer seller who understands all this, when you help break down the data for them, analyze the data, tell them what's happening in the market, that's really what they're looking to you for. And so when it comes time for a listing, for example, to give them a recommendation on pricing, when you educate them on all the things about all the listings and all the comps, they probably already know what you're gonna recommend for price. So that when you take the time to do all that education, and then you say, so then I'm recommending a price somewhere, I'll make this up, between 480 and 500, they're already there because you've taken the time to lay the groundwork and foundation for the education of the market. Same thing with a buyer. Okay. Any questions on that? Partner employee, own the result, educate, guide, involved in decision making. So I talked about that already. You're involved in the decision making, but you're not making the final decision. You're guiding them and you're involved in helping them understand the playing field and all the facts and all the potential outcomes. And they're also looking to us to help peek around the corner, anticipate what's happening. They have no idea. You don't know what you don't know, right? So, I mean, think about a time in your life when you were doing something and you didn't know what you didn't know. Can you guys think of one?
I'm currently in health and myself,
Uh-huh.
and that was before I started.
Okay.
And so I started with the
Mm.
She kind of guided me, and it's still kind of even guiding me, but not.
Mm-hmm.
Like even to just get involved.
Oh,
That is, like, who do I use contact?
right. What's a prequel?
Yeah.
Right? Who do I get that from? Yeah. So you don't know what you don't know. And that's think about, you guys as new agents, you don't know what you don't know, but imagine a consumer, you know enough to start to be dangerous right now, but they don't even know that. So that you really have to take the entire book of real estate and help simplify it and make it consumable for them because there's just so much to it. And I think too, back to, situations in my life where something goes sideways. And I'm like, well, why didn't they tell me that? I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you're like, why didn't they tell me that? And I get frustrated because I feel like they know I didn't know. So why weren't they helping me try to anticipate all the twists and turns? And that comes back to communication. So I don't like feeling that way. So I don't want my clients to ever feel that way. I hate that feeling. I get irritated very quickly because I feel like they've wasted somebody or something has wasted my time or my money, both of which are very valuable to all of us. So thinking about those things when I'm talking to my clients and even saying sometimes I may not know all the things. And if I don't, I will be the first to tell you and I'll be the first to go try to help find you an answer. So I think just putting that stuff out there and naming it, that, we do our best, but we're also there to help find the answers for them and anticipate all the twists and turns so that we don't ever end up in a situation where you're caught off guard because I didn't tell you something. But if there's a situation where we're all caught off guard and none of us were expecting it, well, then we got to get our heads together and figure it out. Okay. Uses judgment and intuition. That's a big one. You got to listen to your gut. You guys are younger, so maybe you're better at it than I was at your age, but you got to listen to your gut. If something doesn't add up, don't be afraid to try to find out why. Don't be afraid to go back to the other agent and be like, hey, can you explain again? I don't know, it could be anything. Here's a good example. Okay. There is somebody right now who has a buyer under contract in a property, and a couple of the doors in the house are locked. The tenants have locked 2 bedrooms. And the buyer they made an offer, they got under contract, but it was subject to them seeing the full property within 72 hours. And So now they're trying to get in to see these other rooms of the house that are literally padlocked, like weird. It's not just the door was locked, there's like padlock on it. And I was talking with this agent and I'm like, drugs. She's like, are they trafficking people? Like, what is that? Like, right? Something doesn't add up what is going on. So that's where you just have to call a listing agent and be like, this is weird. What is going on? You know, is there something my client needs to be? Yes, there's like the nosy factor of what is that's weird. But then there's also the safety factor. What is it that your buyers may potentially be purchasing or walking into? Is it unsafe? Is it dangerous? Yeah, so those are the things that you're like, so I just kept encouraging her, you need to go back and have a conversation with the listing agent. You need to get to the bottom of this. You need to call this out because this is not normal. And for them to try to act like it's normal, nothing to see here is weird. So I guess that's my judgment, intuition. Irreplaceable, make yourself irreplaceable. Everything in our business and the success of our businesses that you guys are building, and I've been doing for a long time. You want those clients that keep coming back to you. You want those clients that refer their friends and their family. If you can find a handful of clients that bring you 6, 7, 8 deals through either themselves directly or their friends and family, those are the clients you want. Those are the people you're after when you're doing all your lead gen. Is ultimately to get those people. And when you make yourself irreplaceable, they're never going to turn to anybody else for their real estate needs. And even if they call you randomly with questions like, hey, I saw a property come on the other day. I'm really thinking of moving, but this one caught my eye. They're looking to you for information. That's great. That's great. And you may have to do some busy work along the way to keep them engaged and continue to show your value, even if it doesn't always lead to a transaction. But the fact that they think of you as a trusted resource and ally, that's making yourself irreplaceable. Minimally paid, highly paid. My cashier example is still holding up. This is great. Okay, think about what a cashier is making a target versus what you guys can get paid in real estate. Huge difference. And that's why you see so many companies coming in now to try to get between where the money is, right? Clients pay real estate agents a lot of money. And look at Opcity's jumping in on that, right? They see money moving. There's going to be more of that. You guys are going to have to build a business differently than I did because we didn't have that 17 years ago. Realtor.com, probably was just getting started. MLS was a thing. Opcity wasn't a thing. Zillow wasn't a thing. But you see these companies coming in and trying to jump between where the money moves, and they're taking a piece of it. You can still be highly compensated for our time, but you need to be very careful about protecting your time too, because your time is valuable, and I don't want you to ever think that I could be making more money working as a cashier at Target or stocking or whatever. It may bring you passion, and that's great, and that's one thing, but if you're passionate about real estate and you're after building a practice that's big and successful for yourself and your family and whatever else your goals are, you can be highly rewarded for this job. And you're going to get so efficient at it that you can do it in your sleep, which doesn't seem possible to you right now, I'm sure. So there's a lot there, but I guarantee you can get to a place where you can reach your goals, whatever they are. You just have to keep pushing and keep pursuing, but the compensation is definitely there. Any thoughts on the functionary versus fiduciary? You're good. Oh, look, there's a whole nother page here. Lead gen, capture, convert to appointments. Be the fiduciary. How would you be a fiduciary when you're lead genning? Are you fiduciary to a non-client?
No.
Well, it's like,
Mm-hmm. Yep, the broker's disclosure form is a great form to point to. It just spells it right out there. It's so simple, it's so basic, and I think a lot of agents don't do that. So when I sit down with someone for the first time and I say, I need to go over some paperwork with you, the first one, this is a broker disclosure form. Have you seen this before? If they say no, but you know they've talked to other agents, using 10 years at once, and I think this is a great line. He said, oh, gosh, that's troubling, right? Because by law, we're supposed to show this to them. And I say that. I want them to know I'm following the law. I am required by the state of New Hampshire to show this form to you. Not a contract, but it's very important for consumer protection for you to know where you stand in relationship with me. Right now, you are a customer to me. I don't owe you anything. You don't owe me anything. And then you just point to the list. It's right there, which is so great. It's not complicated. It's very simple. Like, a kindergartner can probably understand that form. And that's great. And point out to your customer, here's what I owe you. As a client, here's what I would owe you. I'd love for you to be my client. I'd love the opportunity to work with you. I think people are scared to say that, ask for the business. But does that sound salesy to you? Like, so fine. Yeah, just find, you have to find your flavor and use your personality. We talk about scripts, which are important, but take that script or that conversation and make it your own. And then you don't stumble over the words as much. I know we think of lead gen around trying to find the new client, but in terms of a fiduciary, I think of an example. If I have a seller or a buyer, I'll use a seller example. I have a seller that wants to sell their home, but they need to find a place to go. If I am prospecting on behalf of my client, that's fiduciary. Because if people start asking questions about my client, am I allowed to share everything? Right? Or if I'm prospecting for my buyer clients who maybe just won the lottery, and they can pay cash, am I allowed to share that? No, but you're doing lead gen on their behalf. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay. Present to buyers and sellers and get agreements. I find, so have you guys negotiated any deals yet? Get any transactions? Okay. You will probably find in short order, a lot of people overshare. I hear Jason Westcott in my brain right now saying this. People will overshare and just let them keep talking. I don't mean your clients. I'm talking about the other agents. I see people violate their client relationships all the time. Because they're just like, oh, chatty. Oh, husband's recently diagnosed with cancer, so they just need to downsize. I feel bad knowing that, but that also tells me a lot about that seller's motivation right now. And not that in this market we can negotiate down much, but that tells me a little bit more about the situation. Now, her seller may have told her you could share all this information, sure. But just always be listening to what people say, because even though they're violating their client relationship, in some cases, it's intel that you now have, and that could maybe benefit your client. Okay. Same thing on the buy side. Don't overshare, and be careful of the listing agents that are then asking too many questions of your buyer. Sometimes and I know sometimes it's meant like, oh, just in good nature, we're just having fun. This is a great showing. Everybody's getting along. We're laughing. It's great. It's fun. But there are those agents that will start asking what feels like very nosy questions. It just gets a little awkward sometimes. Oh, are you coming here for a job? How old are your kids? What grades are they in? Sometimes conversations naturally lead there, but you can also prepare your clients to say, you don't have to answer these questions. You're not comfortable. You don't have to answer me. We can just focus. Let's just focus on the house. So you don't want people to be put in uncomfortable positions, because we know this about people. Some people are very friendly and open and chatty. Other people are guarded, more reserved. They're only going to share what they need to share. And you have to be able to read the room. So don't be the listing agent asking inappropriate questions, and also prepare your buyer that they don't need to answer questions they're not comfortable with. Or if you know that your client is a certain way and more guarded, find a way to insert yourself in between yourself and the listing agent and your buyer. Just say, hey, let's talk about that heating system over there. Redirect. Agreements. Well, we just kind of talked about the buyer and seller relationships, showing buyers and sellers. Write and negotiate contracts. this just kind of flows from what I was just saying, that, when you're writing these contracts, you always, yes, the contracts, the forms that we get from the state, and we're just filling them in for the most part, but they're always make sure that any language you add to your contract, the wording reflects the intent of what you're trying to accomplish. We get caught up all the time in this business around, well, that's not what I meant. Well, that's what it says. And I think, what would a judge say? If a judge read this, what would a judge say? And if I were someone else reading this, would they understand what I'm saying? If you're not sure, please ask. Because a lot of times it could be just as simple as leaving out one or two words, and it changes the intent of what you were writing. There's a clause library in, I don't know about DocuSign site. There are clause libraries, so you can look at that. I know that those have been approved by the Market Center, but sometimes you might have a unique situation. You just want to be super clear that what you and the listing agent and the buyer's agent have discussed, and what you and your client have discussed, that what you wrote down actually captures the intent of what you are trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? This is a great example of where you and your client might need to get your heads together. You're like, okay, we know we're trying to accomplish X. Let me draft up some language. And then, does that sound right to you? Is this capturing what your wishes are? And be able to talk with them about that. And sometimes it requires having conversation with the co-broke to make sure that even though everybody's verbally come to terms on something, that the final wording you put in the contract matches everybody's intent, and you're all crystal clear. The last thing you want is confusion around the language.
What else can you kind of talk to Chase? Can't talk to other agents.
Absolutely. You can talk to other agents generally speaking, but you can't say, oh, my client Susie Smith for 123 Main Street. That stuff you can't do, but you could say, hey, I've got a situation. Here's what it looks like. I mean, we all have, you'll find your friends and your people in the business that you may be able to run ideas by, or that they experienced something like this last year, and you want to learn how they navigated it. But yes, when it comes down to the specifics of a contract and the language of a contract, Jen and Jason for sure. Okay. Coordinate the sale to closing. So are you guys familiar with the full process? Like all the stuff from, okay. So let's run through that a little bit. So let's say you get under contract today. Let's say your buyer's offer is accepted and the seller has signed the contract. What's the first thing you do? Well, one of the first. What's on the top right hand corner of the first page of the contract? The effective date. The effective date is the day from which the clock starts ticking on everything in the contract. So if you think about a purchase and sales agreement, you have escrow is due within a certain number of days. Okay, so if you go under contract, let's say the escrow is due in 3 days. If you go under contract today, tomorrow is day one. Okay, so today is, let's say, the 4th or 5th. Today is the 5th. Okay, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Escrow needs to be in the hand of the brokerage holding escrow by Saturday, or I say end of business Saturday. Okay, so if the effective date is today, and we're talking about home inspections, and they put 10 days for home inspections, what would that look like? You did the math already on that. You're good. See, I literally counted out. I go, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Right. Okay. So and I would encourage you, when you get things under contract, add these dates to your calendar. Okay. We live by our phones. We live by our calendars. We live by our email and our texting. Put them in your calendar, because the last thing you want to do is be like, wait, are we supposed to respond to home inspections tomorrow or Thursday or Friday? Are either of you licensed in Maine or just New Hampshire? Okay, in New Hampshire, we do it by calendar days. Maine does it by business days. So if you, and we're getting a little sidetracked here off the fiduciary, but I think these are all really important things because this is where people can get caught off guard. And then we're trying to protect your clients, right? I'm going to tie it back to fiduciary. You're trying to protect your clients along the way. And if home inspection due diligence is up on Saturday, next Saturday, 10 days, what does that mean? Let's say you have the home inspection, what do you need to do next?
With the home.
So if you get your client under contract today, we'll just say escrow was due in 3 days. So we determined that was Saturday. You need to get a copy of the check because that needs to get uploaded into all your compliance folders. Then home inspection is a 10-day window. So what happens after you get your client under contract and you've added the effective date? What's next? Before we get to that. And the bank orders up, by the way, not you. We have to order the appraisal. I'm sorry, now you said it. The inspection. The inspection has to happen, right? And it has to happen by
The following Saturday.
but not only does it have to happen by the following Saturday, what has to happen by the following Saturday? The buyer has to respond to the home inspection within 10 days. Right, so you don't want to schedule it for Friday or Saturday morning. Because they're gonna have to respond by the end of business Saturday, that's not gonna work out. So you have to think about all these timelines, because if it's on, let's say it's on private, first of all, rate on air, it takes a couple of days.
End of business in New Hampshire is that midnight.
Yeah, but I don't want to,
Like, really
I like,
scheduling that,
I like to think, I say 5 o'clock.
Right.
Because I just,
legally, Maine, it's legally 5, right?
right, it's business at account, I'm sorry, it's business days. And in Maine, you have to resolve your issues within that 10 days versus just respond within those 10 days.
Interesting.
So anyway, don't get Louise on Maine, you're not licensed in Maine. Let's not confuse things. We got enough going on here. So you have to take into account if they're doing water quality tests, if they're on wells, that's gonna take a couple of days for the lab to turn that around. Rate on air, that canister has to sit there for 48 hours. So you have to bake all of this knowledge into your timeline and schedule accordingly. So let's say the house is on private well and you know your clients are doing a radon air test and the inspection deadline is next Saturday. What's your goal? Like what would be a great, what are you looking for timeline wise?
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's always ASAP.
Yeah, early as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it's today's Wednesday, you could have an inspector booked by the end of the day today. You could find somebody to do that. Yeah, for sure. When it comes to schedule me inspections, your buyer can do it. You can give them a couple of names. They can take care of it. You can offer to do it for them if they give you the name of the inspector. Be careful about making the choice of who they use completely, because here's how I look at it. Jen and Jason may say something different, but I think if they say, well, you decide, but then if you do decide and they hate that inspector because they did not like the work that they did, who's that going to blow up on? It's going to reflect on you. So I always give my people choices, recommendations. Here's who a lot of people use. They do a nice job. But you're also going to learn the people that you feel like don't do right by the client and could do a better job. So you'll get to know all those things, but you want to be really careful about steering them specifically, to one person or away from another. It needs to be their decision. But I personally like to take care of the scheduling, just because then it's a little easier for me to work around, like try to sync up my schedule with the buyer's schedule. If the buyer says, oh, I'll schedule it, and you have no idea when they're scheduling it for, and then they say, oh, well, Wednesday at 9, you're like, now you gotta go reschedule, that just becomes more complicated. So I like personally to take control of the scheduling a little bit. But following their direction and who they're telling you they want to use and when they're available. Okay. Okay, so let's assume we get through inspection happens, a couple things come up, buyer wants to ask the seller to make a repair or lower the sales price or whatever the thing is that they want to do. Let's assume you get through inspection. While that is happening, while that is in the works, inspections, and you're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern for a couple of days, waiting for all those things to happen, the buyer is actively working with the lender on getting all their paperwork to the lender. Underwriting has begun, the title order has been placed, so Brad he'll be in touch with the buyer. They need to make application. That's the other date you need to track in your contract. Top of page 4. Buyer needs to make application within X number of days. You have to fill that in. Okay. You need to keep the financing moving along. They need to make application typically pretty quickly. We're not giving them 2 weeks to do this, right? Because if you want to close in 30 days and Brad needs 3 weeks to get his stuff done, they can't apply for a loan the week before closing. That's not going to work. So they need to make application with Brad pretty quickly or whoever their lender is. Because you're working up against the other date in your contract is your financing commitment date. That is the bank's opportunity to tell all parties that the loan is good, buyer's underwritten and approved, and everything's ready to go. The lender needs a couple weeks to get that done. The buyer needs to make application. Underwriter and lending is doing all their things, including ordering appraisal. Okay. The appraiser will contact the listing agent and coordinate that appointment.
What kind of timeline would you appraise? That happen well before closing.
Oh, yeah, because the appraiser, well, let's say you get under contract today, which is again the 5th. Let's say you're trying to close, I'm making this up, May 15th. So if you're trying to close, let me backtrack. If you're trying to close very quickly, let's say by the end of this month, Brad's probably going to order the appraisal pretty quickly because the appraiser, they'll get the file. It takes them a couple of days to do their thing. Then they call the listing agent. It may take them 10 days, 2 weeks to get out there. And then it's going to take them another couple of days up to a week to do the report. Meanwhile, the clock's ticking.
And the bank has to verify their report, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They need to look at the appraisal report and make sure everything meets, their standards, that they don't have any questions on it. And so all of that's happening while you've been working on inspection. The title company has jumped in at this point, and now because the lender will send the title order to 4 Points or whoever the title company is. So all these are all the things that you're managing on the back end with the various parties involved, and the buyer's doing all their homework for the lender to get all the supporting documents. So if you have a financing commitment date of April 28th, that means the appraisal needs to be done, complete, submitted, and approved. All by that date. Okay. That makes sense. Any questions on that? Yeah.
So when the appraisal does happen, say you're what
Depends what you wrote in the contract. Yeah. If the contract says property needs to appraise at or above contract price, failing which buyer reserves the right to renegotiate, buyer and seller are not successful in renegotiating, buyer reserves the right to call the contract null and void with all extra money to be returned. That's what we used to see a lot. We don't see that much anymore because buyers are selling their souls to get a home. So now what we see a lot is if the appraisal comes in short, the buyer is willing to make up some of that difference. If they're willing to make up some of that difference. If they are, then you need to spell out what kind of difference they're willing to make up. Now, if they're doing something like a VA loan, 100% financing, and they have no money, that property has to appraise at 350. Otherwise, they're not going to get the house. The seller needs to lower the price or the deal falls apart. But if they're doing 25% down on a loan, it just means that they may be willing to move forward and they just have to bring a little bit more money to closing. They just need to have that a little bit less equity going into the transaction or going into the ownership part of it, I should say. Okay. So appraisal gets ordered, financing is happening, a commitment comes in. Now that you basically have approval from the bank, then at that point, you're getting closer to the day of closing, you're coordinating with the co-broke, and he's coordinating with their client, and you're coordinating with your client and the title company for day of closing. Where do we want to close and what time? And then we want to do the final walkthrough before that. To make sure everything is as you expect it to be. And the house should be clean. No, it's often not. You need to make sure. Oh yeah, I've rolled rugs up and dragged them out of the house. I've shown up at a walkthrough and the movers were still loading the truck. So. Sounds like a lot of jobs to me. Yeah, so. Yeah, be prepared that you might have to move stuff out. Yeah. Right, free, I think the language in the contract says free and clear of all debris and all stuff's not the word, but it needs to be empty. And I will tell you right now, set the expectation on broom swept, because everybody's version of clean is very different, right? Some people some people have a professional cleaner come in after they move out, they have no energy, they pay someone to do 2 hours of cleaning. Quick toilet, vacuum, sweep, wipe, clean out the fridge, the freezer, because they always forget that. And good. Other people will walk in and be like, oh, I need a new toilet seat. This is disgusting, blah, 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 right? So remind people it's broom swept, and everybody has a different interpretation of what clean is, but the contract says broom swept and free and clear, unless you discuss something else. Okay. All right. Managing the money, I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what they're referring to on this part, but in terms of the transaction, if we are holding escrow, you need to make the escrow release request so Tristan can get you that check. You bring that to closing for the title company, and that ultimately the escrow is that we hold, or the brokerage holds, any brokerage holds, is ultimately part of the buyer's down payment. So that money is applied from the buyers to the buyer side of the Alta statement or the HUD statement. And we just need to make sure that this is big in the news lately with the debacle at Remax. He obviously was not managing the money very well at all. Yeah. I've had that scare before. Yeah. No. I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't understand how it got that far. I still don't get this. Yeah, it's just a mess. So yeah, just be careful with the check. Yeah. There's multiple layers of protection in there. So if you take an escrow check from somebody in order to get it to Kaylee and Tristan, honestly, I would go out of your way to come here versus saying I'll do that later. Because that later falls between the seats of the car, or your significant other takes your car the next day and you're stuck with their car and you're like, oh shoot, now I've got a $10,000 check being driven around, sitting down at Logan Airport because my husband's out of town now. Those are the things that it's just, and if you don't want that responsibility, that is totally fine. Ask your client to deliver the check. Ask them to mail the check, ask if they can do a wire. There's lots of things we can do. If you know that you always lose checks, then maybe you should think about how to build your practice so that you don't even have to really deliver the check, just making sure other people are doing it. Okay? Yeah.
How would they gonna PA with no money down?
It usually gets credited back to the buyer at closing. Yeah, they still need to, they don't, I guess I'm not gonna say they need to, they still should put some sort of good faith escrow in. It will help the seller feel a little more confident and like somebody's got some skin in the game, but if it's $1,000, $2,000, they'll just get that back at closing, or it will be applied to their closing costs, for example. So they're still getting the 100% loan. Good point. They still go by 10 days. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you're so close. This isn't Venmo. If you get under contract today, you collect your buyer's escrow check tomorrow, the deal falls apart on Saturday. Kaylee's gonna sit on that check, the bank's gonna sit on that check for 10 days. So they're not getting their escrow money back probably for 2 weeks. It's not a, okay, well, I'll come pick it up on Monday. It's already been deposited. It has to go through the system because we have no control. Yeah. Yeah. The other time that this timeline is really important is if you have a cash buyer. If your cash buyer gets under contract today, if you're trying to close next Friday, I would not have them bring a check. It needs to be a bank check or a wire. The bank check is like cash. So if they just bring a good old fashioned check from Citizens Bank, there's no way you're closing next Friday. The check needs to clear first. Right, not real money yet. Mhm. I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah, to closing. Yeah. 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 Bring a photo ID that's not expired and a bank check, or better yet, have them wire the money with the title company. With them. Yeah, so just set expectations around these things. Don't over promise and under deliver. Kind of flip the table on that a little bit, turn the tables on that a little bit. I don't want to say you want to under promise, but just kind of set like standard expectations. And if you can exceed that, or the bank can exceed that, or the wire timeline can exceed that, fantastic. But don't set unrealistic expectations and then your client is stressed out and then angry because it didn't happen already, when we know it really probably wasn't going to. Mm. And I want to make sure we do it right. Beautiful. Any questions on anything we've covered around fiduciary? I think you're expert on fiduciary right now. All right, what did you want to start with, Zoe? Accountability. Oh, nice. Mhm.
Yeah, we handle
I
this all.
love it. Awesome.
Right now, so what is it? What is it?
Like a daily kind of thing. And actually, I like that, just that you've done it, send it well.
Great.
Yeah, there you go.
But
All right.
Oh, that's good.
look what this is. We can have that stuff.
Is this like a swear jar where we can put money in it? Is this like a swear jar where we can put money in
I
it?
was gonna say, it's a money thing, because if there's money, if it's with money, I will. That's
That's
the
a good idea.
that's the thing, like, I will, I go to CrossFit and every class is like, kind of, it's like, I get up and play. Because I'm paying for it, like, yeah, that's something that, like, all right, so.
Yeah.
that okay?
Like $1 per name, so if you only got 3 in a day, it's $2.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, I'll be here Monday.
I'm excited about the money thing.
I was like, yeah, there's that. So I'm-
So $5 per name, for example.
$1 per name, just $5 a day that you don't do.
I see. Okay. Okay.
But
If I eat, you know, I can do something, or you can say, like, you know, hold on, sit down, and, I want to go to, I will, because the funds are virtually have, right? Yeah. So I eat over here, where you have
Is it Monday through Friday?
Monday, yeah, Saturday. Monday through Friday and Saturday.
No, way we. Like, you're busy with some of these things, right?
Alright. Monday through Friday.
Yeah, no, this is good.
Oh,
I
this
like
is good.
This is good, yeah. Yeah, I'm about to write for deposit only on the check.
I guess real estate. The one thing. to mention. I guess it's just need to get over the fact. You know, like I don't wanna bother you, like.
I do have a rule with my phone number, not that anyone can call or text me anytime, but if you wake me up at 2 AM and you call and it's not important, I will block your number. That's the only thing. Right, if you call me like, I'm drunk in a ditch, I need someone to save me, I don't care if it's 2 AM, we're gonna be like, what's the weather like? I'm like, okay, blocked, never talk to me again. Right, but if it's 5 PM on a weekday, I think I can accept pretty much any text.
Okay. No,
Not
I
yet.
don't want. No.
Alright, well, you might wanna work on it. It is annoying, like calling 2 AM.
Yeah,
Might be decent.
yeah. Okay, that's fine. That makes me feel.
Yes, you're not bothering. No, you're not. Like I said earlier, you will find your people in this business, and it's important to find your people.
Yeah.
Because we hold each other accountable, we lift each other up when we're having bad days, we celebrate each other when something went really well, we had a great closing. No matter what your business is in real estate or something else, you need to find your people that are your support group. Accountability is key. So don't feel like you're a burden, because we all have our people. You know, so don't feel like it's a burden at all. If they're treating you like you're a burden, then they're not your right person.
And then. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll make that.
But the point of this page is the effective date. Today, tomorrow, Monday.
I'll start tomorrow or today.
No, I'm saying, when do we
When are we gonna
doing
start
this?
this? Today,
Check
tomorrow?
today.
Monday.
Monday? It's papers.
Oh, wow, that's so smart.
Yeah, excellent. Look at that.
I know, like, the pictures, Monday, I want that.
Can I say one thing about the accountability people?
We can start tomorrow, okay? And you won't mess up before Monday, but if for some reason you did, Venmo still exists.
There you go. What do they say? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, in seeking out your accountability buddies, don't pick just new people. You guys are good, but I also want you to find people that maybe have more experience in the business. They don't even have to be just in real estate. People that you admire, people that are mentors, people that you look up to, make them your accountability. They're going to be invested emotionally in what you're doing in real estate and how it's going for you. I mean, probably a family member saying, how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? They're interested and excited to hear how you're doing. And they will be the first to celebrate your successes. So your accountability, yes, I think they should be in real estate, but they don't have to all be in real estate. Yeah. For sure.
So what's your like ideal way of contacting people? Full phone, you're gonna walk into Amber, try and find some people at the grocery store.
I like personal. Yeah.
Amber, with what?
Mhm.
Okay. With the stamp, okay. That's good.
Right, so like just that, if I could do it.
Mhm.
So the reason I asked is I'm thinking if this starts tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, I contact 5 people, have to be prepared by the end of the day to say, what are we gonna say, right? What exactly?
Well, and that's where.
Right, close to
There's so many pages.
the accountability questions.
No, the,
Oh,
conversation.
here we go.
There you go, yeah, so this is where you can prepare your contact to your text. So you're gonna do that, so you just contact, what are you gonna say? Do you have their contact information, whatever that is, right? So this can be, you have this, that manual that I sent you, that's all of this, that's 300. We have all of this, so you can copy that for every day, that's your practice for the next. Handwritten notes are a thing. You all have, probably done. Like, whatever. Conversations do not have.
Yeah, right. Make them conversational.
Yeah. Actual conversations.
Right, it shouldn't be a question. You
Yeah.
do want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate.
You just don't know it yet. You want to be convinced to. Yeah. You could host open houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Those are conversations.
Totally.
Chances are there's going to be an unwrapped buyer or two that goes through that property.
Yeah.
Do you have any buyers that you're working with right now?
Outside.
Yeah. But my,
Will you be listing that?
what is it?
Will you be listing that property? And where are they going?
Canada.
They're leaving the country. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that-
Yeah.
there goes my idea. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you have buyers you're working with, prospect on behalf of your buyer. Pick up your phone, start, this is where the D2, which I can never say correctly, comes in. Prospect on behalf of your buyer. Hey, Joe, Derek, I'm calling because I have a buyer, Zoe. She's been trying to find a property somewhere in Stratford or Rockingham County. Here's what she's looking for. Do you know anybody that's thinking of selling? That is such a passive way to have a real estate conversation. You're not salesy, but you reminded them you're a realtor. Yes, exactly. You're working on behalf of, yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, we continue to struggle with low inventory. Do you know anybody that might be thinking of selling?
I have found that asking that was the only way I found any success so far. Every time I ask someone directly about them, no.
Yeah, exactly. And then that just feels like awkward,
Yeah.
right? So if you can sort of hide behind or disguise it as, not that you're being disingenuous, because you make sure you really do have a buyer that you're asking on behalf of. So don't make that part up, but it's so much easier when you're trying to engage them for the help, because you're trying to help somebody. That just feels so much more than better. Yeah. Yeah. And do you mind if I drop my card in the mail for you? So if you hear of anybody, you could,
Yeah.
you could let them know that we're looking. And then you got the phone call. Now you get their address if you didn't have it before, and you drop in a note in the mail.
Yeah, I just realized something actually on my accountability partner thing, would be really like cheap for me. She likes to use checks. So it's gonna be simple. Practice, yeah. Have like a folder designated.
So if your family member that's moving to Canada, if they weren't moving to Canada, for example, if you have a seller that wants to sell, they're not sure where to go, you can prospect on behalf of them. I have a client that's ready to put their house on the market, they're just a little nervous about the lack of inventory. They're looking to move to Dover. Have you heard of anybody, know of anything, right? You're working on behalf of your client, so much easier, so much softer than. Mhm. Oh, I have a good idea. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Are you ready now? You ready now? You ready now? You could have MLS open in front of you, and if you're calling them and you know they live in Dover, pull up Dover, pull up active and under contract. Be like, they're gonna then ask you what's going on, and be like in Dover, it's crazy. But there's 17 under contract. That's crazy absorption. And they're going, wow. Maybe I could sell my house. What do you think I could get for my house? There you go. Then you go on a listing appointment, even if there's no expectation that they're going to sell anytime soon, but how great practice for you guys. And B, they're going to think of you, right? Like, oh, I have them over for a listing appointment. Yeah. This was really great. We're not ready to sell. I appreciate the information, but when we do want to sell, when the kids are out of high school, we'll definitely give you a call. Does any of that sound salesy to you? Yeah, it's not sold on them. A little bit.
Like in a good way, right? I feel like it's okay to sound it's a sales. It's a gimmicky.
We don't want it to sound gimmicky.
Yeah.
I don't think you want it to sound. I didn't think that sounded gimmicky.
No, that sounds good.
Okay. There's something I was gonna say about this. It'll come back to me. You got your. Oh, I'm gonna just give a picture for command because Melissa would want me to. I'm gonna channel Melissa. When you're having your conversations with your people, if you're using your phone and you're just kind of starting from A and working your way through, that's a great opportunity to make sure those people are in your command. And oh, tell us.
I did it on Monday. I did it on Monday. It's so awesome.
Right?
It was like.
What
90
just
seconds
happened?
And then 500 contacts.
Yeah, I do that. Okay, so, and now.
It's gonna make, why does it keep logging me out? I do not like that feature. Mm,
It sucks, and
um,
it is trying to help you.
I don't think I remember my password.
So it does log you out every 15 days
Okay,
automatically.
okay. All right, so what,
All of this happens because one bad thing happened to an agent once and they were like, oh no, we don't want.
Yeah.
Okay, so some new things we'll make. If you go, this is the command app. Go to contact. And so import. Yeah.
I just heard that word important. I got excited.
Right.
Yeah,
It says import. Import contact, that's your phone contact. Oh, it never did that.
It's good.
Christy was just asking about this yesterday.
I like one by one. Or if it's not here, then it's beautiful. Oh, that's all.
And it knows which ones you already have. So
And it knows
twice.
it's already.
So it won't create do. Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I came at a wrong time.
Oh my gosh, Christy's gonna die.
I was doing like a couple a day. I had like 80. It takes so long.
Oh, wow. So now it is so easy. You have no excuse to not have people. You used it to have people. Send a handwritten card on so that,
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I don't know, the next time they call you, in 3 months, you need to like go check their thing, you're like, oh yeah. it's right. Or when you talk to them, like, oh, it's all right. In 6 months from now, the next time you talk to them, you can pick up their contact card, and you're from the wow. Like, how raw, and they're like, it's not.
Isn't there a character from Family Guy named Bob? Another contact, I know people do this, I don't do it, but when you see on Marketplace, people suddenly start selling a bunch of stuff. I have friends say this to me, it's so-and-so moving because they're selling everything on Marketplace. I'm like, I have no idea. There are agents that will, stock that stuff, and then they'll reach out to that person via Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, they're very.
How are they finding the? Oh, I heard the story. Yeah, something's up. Yeah, something's up. Something's up. Yeah.
Look at that, look at their search history.
Yeah, something's up. Sure enough.
Sure enough.
Hopefully she got the listing. All right, so I love the accountability thing you guys are doing. 5 a day. Fair? Okay. What else?